Danger Street issue 2, Tom King writing with Jorge Fornes on the art. So, you know, I could have used a previously on and like a list of the characters that were in it at the start of this, because there's a lot of characters in this book
Yes.
that again are largely like, you know, minor characters that most people wouldn't know prior to this story. So
It's almost compartmentalized the characters, right? Like we have Lady Cop and the Danger Street kids, right? As a Chuck interacting with each other. Then you have Warlord and Starman and their thing. You have the Creeper and the Green Team. And who am I forgetting? There's another piece. Oh, the stuff with Darkseid on with the New Gods. So I do feel like Tom King is very good at compartmentalizing each of these, and then they kind of weave in and out of each other. So that's how I'm able to keep it. Now, do I know all the name of the Danger Street kids? Not really. I remember Good Looks now because he's the one that got killed in the last issue.
yeah, and they say his name a lot in this one.
They say his name a lot because they have his funeral, right? But yeah, I'll you know, just I know where these threads are because there's some familiar stuff in there.
Yeah, so just to sort of go through, because there are so many like different parts to each of the stories. We have the funeral for Good Looks, and we get the 9-panel grid. We get the other kids talking at his funeral, and then we get the sad reveal on page 2 that it's only them and Lady Cop that are actually at the funeral. Yeah. And I'm like, where's his parents?
Where's his parents? Yeah, it almost feels like the Danger Street kids are kind of not orphans, but like their parents don't care enough. And maybe Good Looks was an orphan, and this was his family. But yeah, that was a definite moment when it pulled back, and it's only those kids and Lady Cop. It made me a bit sad.
Yeah, no, it's the idea that they're forgotten, that no one cares, and you know. Then we go to Warlord and Starman getting a hotel room, and you know, like Starman's obviously riddled with guilt because he's killed a child in the last issue, and it really sort of plays with that throughout his part of the story, where later on he's like saying, oh, we can fix this, maybe we can use Fate's helmet to like change things back because he wasn't supposed to die, so we're just putting things the way they should be. And it really makes, like, because if you remember back to issue 1, their thing was that they were trying to prove that they were worthy of being on the Justice League by summoning and potentially beating Darkseid. The fact that sounds ridiculous in and of itself, but not only did they fail to do that, they murdered an innocent child.
Yeah.
Like, talk about, you know, a Job, I've made a huge mistake style moments here.
For sure. I didn't even think about that, but yes, it is very much, I made a huge mistake.
Yeah, but more devastating than it's told.
Yeah,
obviously.
I mean, because I do like how Starman points out, like, we have Fate's helmet, we can do magic. But I was like, yeah, the last time you guys did it, a kid ended up dying. So how much worse is this thing going to be trying to bring the kid back? Right?
Yeah. I mean, which is why I don't think Warlord's entertained it for a second.
Right.
You know, he doesn't.
Right.
He's not on board with this plan. This feels like Starman grasping out of desperation to try and fix it because he can't live with what he's done. So yeah, there's a lot of weight to that part of the story. We have the Manhunter blowing up a yacht that's got rich people on it, and then we have a great page where he's walking out of the water with the fire in the background. It's really pretty, and that takes us to the Jack Ryder stuff where he's on his new show that the Green Team have given him, but the one sort of catch to it is that he has to like basically shovel propaganda about the Outsiders and blame them for this terrorist attack. And that's all he's constantly talking about through all of his segments on the air. Even though we see that when he's off the air, he does question, well, like, I'm looking into this. In fact, we even see him do it as the Creeper. He's actually questioning someone.
Someone that should know a little bit of everything, and he's got this guy beaten to a pulp.
Yeah.
And is like, well, who are the Outsiders? And the guy's like, I don't know what you're talking about, man. Like, for real.
Well, that's the thing. I think we heard the name Outsiders in issue 1, and we immediately think of the Outsiders. We think of the
Metamorpho, Katana, Black Lightning, and Batman. Yeah.
And even though I wasn't necessarily thinking it was going to be that exact squad, I was like, oh, it'll be something akin to that. But they're shielding it in so much mystery where it feels like almost like the Green Team have just made up an enemy that they want to blame for everything. Like, I'm not convinced the Outsiders are a real thing in this book.
That's where I left this is the fact that we get this segment where Jack Ryder wants to talk to the Commodore, and we'd heard about the Commodore being on the ship, on the yacht, right?
And the Commodore, we should make this clear. The Commodore is I assume, the leader of the Green Team. He is one of the kids.
So this is what I picked up on, because there's a guy that they have that what's his name? God, who's it looks like the Green Team's security guy. But anyways, they have a guy tied up there. That's who I think the Commodore is. And I think
no. That's the same guy that Jack Ryder was interrogating as a creeper.
Was it?
Yeah, it's the same name.
I have to go back and look. Because that guy looked like he was beaten to a pulp. So
yeah, it was the same guy that Creeper was interrogating. So it was showing you that the Green Team are covering like any like the idea that Creeper's investigating it. They're like covering any tracks of anyone who could possibly like detect who the Outsiders are or what the lie around this is. You know, like
so because there's so much going on there, I mistake that this guy was the Commodore, and that they're taking, you know, they're creating this idea of the Outsiders. I'm trying to get back to this book's so dense. Yeah, man, Pete got me good on that one. That is the guy.
Yeah, Nat the Nat, that's his name.
Nat the Nat. Yeah.
So yeah, Creeper's interrogating him, and when he doesn't know anything, Creeper tells him to look into it. You know who will have questions, who have answers. Which next time we see him, the Green Team is like executing him. While the Commodore, quote unquote, is on the phone to Jack Ryder, and he says, "Oh, there's some machinery in the background. If you hear a noise, then you hear the bang," and it's like, super loud, you know, super villainous.
These might be some of the worst villains that Tom King's ever written, and they're rich kids, which don't, you know.
Well, yeah, there's that scene of them in the middle of the book with them. They're playing like poker, and one of them's telling this story, this joke, about someone asking God like how effed he is, and because he's in like a bad part of town, and he's like, "You're not effed. Well, here's what you do: you go up to like the biggest, meanest guy, and you punch him in the face." So he does so, and then he punches this big guy with tattoos, and says, "Okay, what now?" And then God says, "Well, now you are effed." Like, so that's the sort of humor that they're rolling with, and definitely it feels like that's their attitude with anyone who challenges them. It would seem like. So, and then the other part of the story, of course, is Lady Cop going around questioning all of the workers at all the various gas stations up and down the highway, because they think they know the car from the tire prints that was there, the one that Warlord and co were driving, and she's questioning everyone who works at all these stations, and basically we get this idea that it's very futile. Like, no one knows anything. It's like, oh, they all see hundreds of cars every day. No one remembers anything. To the point where she's like really like down and depressed about not having any leads. And the kid even yells at her, and she's like feels bad she can't give them an update and say that they've got something concrete. But then, of course, towards the end of the issue, she does actually find someone who remembers, and because they're a car person and they want, you know, they were impressed with the car, so they remembered it. And you know, that sort of leads up for one of her cliffhangers at the end, which is, oh, she does have some kind of a solid lead now, because we get kind of like a montage at the end where Manhunter is going to blow up something else again, because it's not even the second time he blows something up. There's another one in the middle of the book where
it's the refinery, right?
Yeah, it's a refinery, which is pretty dark, because we just like cut to this refinery where there's like a guy talking, and then there's an explosion, and then you literally just see like a skeleton and like the guy's hard hat at the bottom of the page. It's really good stuff. But yeah, so she has a lead by the end. She has like a car, and that's what's so funny about this, is that it does feel like there's like 4 or 5 things going on, but they kind of split into 2 clear things that are connected, and I'm really wondering how they're all going to connect later on in the story, because Lady Cop and the Danger Street Kids, they obviously connect to the Warlord and the Starman stuff, because that's who's behind the murder of the kids. So those are already like coming to a convergence, and worth mentioning, the kids all make a pact to find whoever did this and kill them.
And right, there's that, and then so there, and so that leads to, because there's a scene with Highfather and Darkseid, right?
Oh yeah, as a quick scene, yeah.
So Highfather goes to Darkseid, and Desaad starts doing his whole thing, and Highfather's like, I don't got time for this. I want to see my friend. And then he calls Darkseid by his given name, which is like Uxas, right? And then they embrace, because whatever, when Warlord and Starman summon Atlas, it almost is like this first domino falling of the death of the new gods. That's how I read that, right? And that's that is a very Jack Kirby-esque thing.
Yeah, well, they killed Atlas, right?
Right. And so he goes, Atlas is gone, right? And that's when they end up hugging. So it's almost like they know that their time as the fourth world, this has always been a thing that's fascinated me with the New Gods, is that there was always this idea that the superheroes would usurp them as the fifth world, right? They are the New Gods of the fourth world. And that Earth, the reason why Earth is such this crux is that's the superheroes are meant to become the new gods, the gods of the fifth world. And that was the thing that Kirby was always playing with, because, deep down, the new gods are based off of all these different mythologies, especially Norse mythology, and that the Norse mythologies about cycle. Like when Ragnarok happens, everything just happens, starts back up again. And
what's funny about that?
Next version.
What's funny about this concept is that it's not like it was the big superhero. It wasn't the Justice League who killed a new god. It was these pair of idiots who wanted to prove themselves, that might potentially start a domino effect, because just by chance, not because there's actually some big change that's really going to come, but it might happen now because they believe it's happening because of this death.
Right, and
that's I think that's quite fascinating, because it sets up just the idea of the spread and control of information, which ties thematically into what they're doing with the Outsiders.
That's what I was just getting to. Stuff. Right, is that Manhunter, whatever's going on with Manhunter, is giving the Green Team and Jack Ryder the stuff that they need to dispel their information that the Outsiders are behind everything. Who is this, phantom threat that nobody really knows? But if I had to guess, knowing King, the Green Team are behind that to give themselves an enemy to rally people behind. And it feels very much with what he was saying in Rorschach, right? With how that investigation went. I mean,
it's entirely possible it won't happen, and it'll just be like a comparison thing thematically throughout the book, but it would not be surprising, and it would almost be expected that at some point the dingbats of Danger Street, the kids, will take on the Green Team in some capacity, and you'll have these like ultra evil rich kids versus these more likable poor kids from a shitty street that'll right now I don't see how those two end up meeting, but it feels like almost inevitable that at some point we're going to have that conflict.
Well, and if you look at the Green Team and the Danger Street, which was very confusing in the first issue, right? They all look very similar. Like there's almost like the Green Team are like a dark version of the Danger Street Dingbats. They have very similarities with each of the characters. So that's not by mistake. And then, because then when you look at Apocalypse and New Genesis together, right? They're opposites of each other too. So I feel like it's just Tom King. We're definitely I line up with you on that one, right? That they're gonna have to, I feel, face off in some way, or in some way somehow. But yeah, I keep looking for who I know who that character is the Green Team's like bodyguard, or the one who executes that guy. It's just it's slipping from me, and it's driving me nuts. Because as we've been having this discussion, I've been trying to Google it and I cannot find it.
Yeah, honestly, it wouldn't shock me if there was somehow a twist where the Dingbats become the Green Team, since you're pointing out the similarities between them. Because it's not impossible that we could find out that, given that I said that all the stuff with the Dingbats and Lady Cop with Warlord and that feels separate to everything going on with the Outsiders and the Green Team and Jack Ryder, it wouldn't shock me if somehow they do become the Green Team. Admittedly, though, there's 4 Green Team members, and obviously one of the Dingbats is dead. But if there's some weird magic at play that brings the 4th one back,
right?
Because there's definitely some similarities. There's one in each who wears glasses. There's one black kid in each group. Like the hair on the other one is kind of similar to one of the other guys on the Green Team. Like there is definitely some parallels between them visually. Now that could just be an intentional thing, like you said, like the good and evil version of the same thing. Yeah. But I don't know. Maybe they do something where the Dingbats become the Green Team.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
I was feeling kind of that along the same lines, but I don't know. I feel like again, I've read enough Tom King at this point to realize that he likes to have these dynamics. He likes to have people to compare against each other and show how similar, but also how different they are. I mean, I feel like that was his first chunk of his Batman run was Bane doing that with Bruce, right? And I feel like here with that is just like you pointed out, these are these scrappy kids from Danger Street who they're poor and they have no control over anything yet, and then they're up against these billionaire rich kids that have all the control and seemingly, devious designs for the world. And if anybody could stop them, it's going to be this scrappy group of kids and Lady Cop, right? Like, I feel like it's going to be the unsuspecting heroes, not the ones that we think of, that are going to be the ones that slip by. So, but yeah, no, it's Tom King stuff working at its best, I feel. And Fornes's art here is just great. Like, the page with the creeper beating up Nat the Gnat, it's bathed in such shadow. It does give it a creepy vibe, and I hate to do that because it's right there. But like when the creeper is licking his fingers, right? It makes me feel like shivers down my spine.
Yeah, no, I think the pacing for me in the art is what, and as Fornes showed this on Rorschach as well. But it's the 9-panel grid into the full page reveal of the funeral. It's the build up. It starts off with a close up of Darkseid, and then it becomes more personal when it becomes more of a friendship thing than a regal sort of presentation to the Lord of Apocalypse. Mm-hmm. It changes its demeanor, and the art reflects the fact that it changes from one type of scene to another type of scene. So I think there's a lot of that through it. There's a lot of smart choices made when it comes to that stuff. And this is reminding me a little bit of talking about Rorschach. It's very different story wise, but the one thing that it is reminding me of is this idea of we're kind of piecing together what the book actually is in terms of what the mystery is, what the story is that it's building. Whereas I feel like Human Target has a mystery, but Human Target isn't like mysterious in how it's told. It's very much like taking it one day at a time. We understood what the concept was clearly from day one, and it's working through. Well, it's got twists and turns, but it's going through in a more straightforward narrative. Whereas Human Target, kind of like Rorschach, it feels like we're getting pieces of a puzzle, and we're kind of like piecing it together. With all the fragments that we're getting each issue.
It's very dense, right? Like Rorschach was, versus Human Target. Not that it's not dense, but it is more straightforward in what the mystery is. And here, there's so many different cogs and levers and other things going on, and we're only 2 issues in on top of it, and there seems like we've gotten a lot of story for 2 issues. Yeah,
we don't have the answer to the mystery in Human Target, but we know what the mystery is. Right. Whereas here, we're still even like there's enough intrigue, of course. Like I don't want to suggest that this is a problem because it's not. I think as I'm reading this, there's a fun element to actually trying to piece together what's happening. And the reason why it's still fun to read, and the reason, or maybe not fun, but the reason why it's still engaging to read is because each story on its own has enough drama that sustains each part of the story on its own. You feel for the kids losing their friend. You feel for Starman and his guilt. You feel for Lady Cop because she wants to try and give these kid answers, and she's struggling to do so, and she feels that she can't. The propaganda and the conspiracy, the Green Team stuff is intriguing. It's interesting to watch and seeing what they're up to. Like each part of the story on its own functions enough on its own with its own drama and intrigue that it makes the whole thing easy to enjoy, despite the fact that we don't know how it all fits together yet. That's where it would fall apart if those things weren't. It's just like, okay, the end game's great and I've got all these pieces that go together, but the important thing is that each individual element is engaging and makes you feel something on their own, and almost all of them do in the book. So I think it's doing a really good job, and I really enjoyed issue 2. The only concern I had is that I really would have liked to recap at the start just to refresh, but I ended up going back and skimming issue 1 just to give me a quick refresher,
or even a character page too, to remind you who these characters are.
Yeah.
I always like that. I mean, I wish they would bring back the recap page.
I went to DC Wiki and looked at issue 1's page. I didn't want to look at issue 2 because if there's a surprise character, it would tell me that. So I looked at issue 1 to just sort of see, okay, just remind me who all the characters are. Yeah, so I was like, okay, all right.
So the guy that I couldn't figure out, it's Codename Assassin.
Okay, there you go.
That's the guy. And then that led me to first appearance was the first issue special where all of these other characters are coming from. So again, it's Tom King also taking this very, kind of cult book and doing this whole big story with them, with all the characters and making them all fit. Even the new gods.
Is that one issue special meant to be really good or something, or is this like a weird?
No,
just like...
so the research that I did on it was these were all meant to be like the first issues, kind of like a pilot season, right? And then something had happened that led to them being all published on the same time, and so they were all these little snippets of books that nothing happened with, and because it was such a low printing number, it became this thing like this kind of like cult fandom around it, because if you had read it, there was a lot of stuff in there by, Jack Kirby, Joe Simon, Jerry Conway and Denny O'Neil. So a lot of these, just these weird type of things. And it got reprinted a couple times, that those weren't very popular. So it just seems to me like Tom King had read this thing, so many years back. And he's like, I think I could do a story out of these. Because when you pull up the list of stories, you have Atlas, the Green Team, Metamorpho, Lady Cop, Manhunter, the Dingbats of Danger Street, the Creeper, the Warlord, Dr. Fate, the Outsiders, Codename Assassin, Starman, and the Return of the New Gods. These are all characters that have popped up.
What I was asking was really, is there a critical acclaim around that issue, or is this something that is just Tom King who's picked something that he knows?
That's what I think it is.
Okay.
That's what I think it is, because trying to find like what these actual stories about is really difficult, because they were just these little one issues. So I do think this is something that Tom King had read maybe as a kid, right? And it made such an impression on him that now he wanted to do this. So, because like Lady Cop, I've tried to look up the character, and it was like maybe 2 or 3 issues worth of appearances, And same with the Dingbats of Danger Street. I know the Green Team became a book that I think Gail Simone had done in the DC YOU section. But other than that, a lot of these characters, like we were familiar with the Creeper and Warlord, Dr. Fate, of course. So, but there's all these smaller ones that are popping up that don't have a lot to work with. I feel are the ones that are shining so far. They're the ones that King can do stuff with, like Lady Cop and the Dingbats, and maybe even the Green Team, right? Judging from what we've seen so far.
Yeah. All right, what are you giving Danger Street issue 2?
I'm going to give this an 8.5.
Yeah, I'll agree with that, 8.5.